Welcome back to Life Stories Network, the place where real emotions, unforgettable twists, and powerful lessons come alive. Today, I want to share something deeply personal, something that tore me apart yet made me stronger. This is the story of how my parents chose my sister's dance recital over one of the biggest milestones of my life, only to discover much later that the event they so easily skipped was actually my wedding. I remember the weeks leading up to that day. My life was already complicated. I had been engaged for a while, quietly planning the kind of wedding that wasn't about glamour, but about love. My fiancé and I weren't rich, and we didn't want to make a show of it. We just wanted family and sincerity. But I also knew how my parents were. They always placed my sister at the center of their world. She was the dancer, the star, the golden child. No matter what I did, I was always the one standing in the shadows. I kept telling myself, this time will be different. This time, they'll show up for me. I sent them a message about my special event without giving away the full details. I wanted it to be a surprise, to see joy on their faces when they walked in and realized it was my wedding. I thought they would be touched, proud even, that I trusted them with such an intimate moment. But deep down, a small voice inside me kept whispering that maybe, just maybe, I was setting myself up for disappointment. As the day drew closer, my mother called me, her tone excited but not for me. She gushed about my sister's big dance recital happening the same day. She said, "You're not doing anything too important, right? Because your sister's show is huge for her future. We all have to be there." My heart sank. I wanted to scream out, "It's my wedding," but I swallowed the words. I thought if I revealed it now, they'd only come out of obligation, not love. I wanted them to choose me without knowing what was at stake. The morning of my wedding arrived. My fiancé stood by me with calm reassurance, but I couldn't shake the ache in my chest. As guests filled the small hall we had decorated with flowers and fairy lights, I kept glancing at the door, waiting for the familiar faces of my mom and dad. I imagined them walking in, surprised, maybe even teary-eyed, realizing that their daughter was finally becoming a bride. Instead, all I saw was emptiness where their support should have been. Every vow I spoke that day was soaked in a mix of joy and pain. Joy because I was marrying the love of my life, someone who accepted me fully. Pain because the two people who raised me weren't there to witness it. I kept my smile for the photos, but when the camera was down, I wiped away tears I hoped no one noticed. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, yet it carried a hollow loneliness I couldn't explain. Meanwhile, across town, my parents were clapping, cheering, and recording my sister's performance. To them, that moment was priceless. They believed I was only hosting some small event, not realizing the depth of what they had missed. My sister twirled and bowed, basking in their applause, while I was walking down an aisle to an empty row where they should have been seated. When the ceremony ended, people congratulated me, hugged me, and told me how beautiful everything was. But inside, I kept wondering, why wasn't I enough? Why couldn't my parents see me the way they saw her? My new husband squeezed my hand and whispered, "We'll build our own family. One that never makes anyone feel unseen." That promise gave me hope, but it didn't erase the sting. The truth came out weeks later, not because I wanted revenge, but because life has a way of revealing what's hidden. My parents visited me casually, asking how my event had gone. I stayed silent for a moment, letting them talk about my sister's recital as if it were the highlight of the year. Then, quietly, I slid a photo album across the table. Inside were pictures of me in my wedding dress, walking down the aisle, exchanging rings, and standing hand in hand with my husband. Their faces turned pale. My mom's hand trembled as she flipped through the pages. My dad's voice cracked as he asked, "You got married, and we weren't there?" I could hear the guilt dripping from every word, but part of me was too broken to care anymore. I said softly, "I gave you a chance to show up for me without conditions. You chose her instead." The silence in the room was deafening. My mom started to cry, but her tears felt too late. My dad tried to explain, saying, "If we had known, we would have come." But that was exactly the point. I didn't want them there just because of the label of wedding. I wanted them there because I mattered, because my milestones deserved their presence just as much as my sisters did. For years, I had lived in the shadow of comparison. Every birthday, every achievement, every moment of pride, I always came second. That day was supposed to break the pattern, but instead, it confirmed what I had feared all along. Still, as much as it hurt, it also opened my eyes. I realized I couldn't keep waiting for their validation. My worth didn't come from their attendance or their applause. My husband stood by me through every tear and every silence that followed. He reminded me daily that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up, who stays, who chooses you again and again. That truth slowly stitched my broken heart back together. And though I still carry the scar of their absence, I also carry the strength of knowing I survived it. After that painful moment when my parents realized the truth, something shifted in me. For the first time, I felt the power of silence. I didn't need to shout, argue, or justify my choices. The photo album had said everything. They sat across from me, broken and speechless, and I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. On one hand, they finally knew how badly their absence had hurt me. On the other hand, no amount of regret could rewind time and place them in the empty chairs that haunted my wedding day. In the days that followed, my parents called constantly. They left voicemails, long messages, even showed up at my door. My mom begged me to let her explain. My dad promised to make things right. But I couldn't bring myself to open the door every time. My husband reminded me gently that forgiveness was a gift, but healing takes time. I wasn't ready to let them rush me into pretending everything was fine. Meanwhile, my sister acted as though nothing had happened. She flaunted her dance photos on social media, beaming with pride at her recital. I couldn't even scroll without stumbling upon comments like, "Your parents must be so proud of you." That stung more than I could put into words. Because while she basked in their pride, I was sitting with the memory of walking down the aisle to no parents, no family cheers, just silence where love should have been. One night, I finally picked up my mom's call. Her voice cracked as she said, "We thought it was just another one of your small events, sweetheart. We didn't know it was your wedding." I swallowed hard and asked, "So, if I don't label something important, you automatically assume it's not worth your time? Do I really matter so little?" She sobbed, but I didn't feel relief. I felt tired, worn out from years of chasing after scraps of attention. My dad tried a different approach. He showed up in person with a gift, an envelope stuffed with money. He said, "Take this. Start your married life with no struggles. Let this be our way of saying sorry." But the moment I saw that envelope, anger surged inside me. I pushed it back toward him and said, "You can't buy back a memory. You can't pay to erase the fact that when I needed you the most, you weren't there." His eyes welled with tears, but I refused to let guilt be replaced with cash. It wasn't about money. It was about presence, love, and effort. I wanted them to sit in that hall, to smile at me through happy tears, to clap as I said, "I do." Instead, they chose my sister again, like always. And what hurt most was that they never even questioned it. They didn't stop to think, maybe her event matters, too. They just assumed hers was bigger, brighter, more deserving. Still, a part of me longed for reconciliation. Because no matter how much pain they caused, they were still my parents. Late at night, I replayed old childhood memories, the times my mom braided my hair for school, the times my dad carried me on his shoulders when I was too tired to walk. Were those moments lies, or had they simply forgotten how to see me as worthy too? That question ate at me, and I didn't have an answer. As weeks turned into months, something beautiful happened. My husband's family surrounded me with warmth. His mother invited me into her kitchen, teaching me old recipes. His father fixed things in our home without being asked. His siblings called me sister without hesitation. It was as though I had been handed a new family, one that knew how to show up without conditions. For the first time in a long while, I felt chosen, but then came the breaking point. My sister called me one afternoon, casually laughing. "Mom told me you're mad just because they missed your event. Don't be dramatic." My recital was huge for me. Those words pierced deeper than a knife. Dramatic? Was it dramatic to want your parents at your wedding? Was it dramatic to expect love on the most important day of your life? I clenched the phone, trying to hold back tears, before I finally said, "You'll never understand because you've never been the one overlooked. You've always had them. I never did." Then I hung up, shaking with anger. That night, I cried into my husband's chest, confessing how broken I still felt. He stroked my hair and whispered, "Let them carry their guilt, love. You don't need to carry it anymore. We'll build something stronger together." His words reminded me that while I couldn't rewrite the past, I could choose the future. Months later, my parents begged to meet again. This time, I agreed, but only at a neutral place. We sat in a quiet cafe, and my mom reached across the table, holding my hands. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling. She said, "We failed you. There's no excuse, only regret. Please give us another chance." My dad nodded, his lips quivering as though he couldn't find the right words. I took a deep breath, searching their faces. "Another chance doesn't erase the first," I said. "I'll always remember sitting there, waiting for you to walk through the door, and you never did. That memory will never leave me." They broke down in front of me, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse, not excuses, not money, not deflection. Just raw, painful regret. Did it heal me instantly? No. But in that moment, I realized something powerful. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about freeing yourself from carrying someone else's mistakes forever. I wasn't ready to say, "All is forgiven," but I was ready to say, "I'll try." That was my first step toward peace. Walking out of that cafe, my husband held my hand and smiled softly. "You're stronger than you know," he whispered. And for the first time since my wedding day, I believed it. I wasn't defined by their absence. I was defined by how I rose above it, how I built love from the ruins of disappointment. Time passed, and life moved forward, though the scar of that day still lived inside me. My wedding photos remained tucked away in an album I rarely opened. Every time I saw the empty chairs in those pictures, my chest tightened. But slowly, the weight of grief turned into a strange kind of strength. I began to accept that sometimes, the family we're born into doesn't give us the love we deserve, but we can still choose a family that does. My husband and his people filled that void in ways I never expected. Yet my parents didn't stop trying. They sent letters, birthday cards, and invitations to family dinners. At first, I ignored them, too hurt to respond. But then I remembered what my husband said, "We don't forgive for them, we forgive for us." Carrying anger was exhausting. It chained me to a moment I desperately wanted to move beyond. I decided to meet them again, but this time on my terms. When we sat down, I told them, "If you truly want to be part of my life, it has to be consistent. No more favoritism, no more choosing her over me. Either you show up for me as much as you do for her, or you stay away." My parents cried, but they agreed. My mother promised she would never again dismiss me as less important, and my father swore he would make the effort he had failed to before. I listened, unsure if I believed them, but at least I gave them the chance to prove it. My sister, however, was another story. She mocked my pain, acting as though I was overly sensitive. "You're still hung up on that," she sneered during one call. "It was just one day. Get over it." Her words burned like acid. But instead of arguing, I simply said, "It wasn't one day. It was every day leading up to that one. It was a lifetime of being second place." And with that, I chose to distance myself from her. Sometimes blood isn't thicker than peace. As months turned into years, my marriage grew stronger. My husband and I built a home full of laughter, warmth, and small rituals that gave me joy. He made sure to celebrate every achievement of mine, no matter how small. Got a new job? He baked a cake. Finished a project? He left flowers on the table. He reminded me constantly that I mattered, that my milestones were worth celebrating. His love healed wounds I thought would never close. Then one day, something unexpected happened. My parents invited us over, saying they had something special planned. Hesitant but curious, we went. To my surprise, the house was decorated with flowers and lights, almost like a wedding. On the dining table sat a large cake that read, "We missed your first wedding day, but we'll never miss another." My heart stopped for a moment. My mom held my hand and said, "We know we can never undo what we did, but we want to celebrate you now, even if it's late." Tears filled my eyes as my dad stood there, awkwardly holding a bouquet, whispering, "We're sorry, truly sorry." For the first time, I believed they meant it. I didn't see excuses or dismissiveness. I saw two flawed people realizing their mistakes. And though it didn't erase the past, it gave me a small piece of the closure I had been craving. We cut the cake together, and I felt a tiny part of the heavy stone inside me lift. My husband squeezed my hand, smiling proudly at me, as if to say, "You did it. You let yourself heal." It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was something. A step forward. A start. Looking back now, I realize the wedding day they missed wasn't just about vows and rings. It was about validation, about finally being seen as important in my own family. And though they failed me that day, their regret and eventual effort taught me a different lesson. People can change, but only if they truly want to. It's not about the apology, it's about the action that follows. No longer live in the shadow of my sister. I no longer measure my worth by whether my parents clap for me. I've learned to stand tall, knowing my value comes from within and from the love I built with the family I chose. My parents still have a long way to go, but I've stopped waiting for them to fix the past. I've learned to move forward, carrying both the pain and the strength it gave me. So, if you've ever felt overlooked, forgotten, or less important than someone else in your own family, hear me when I say this: your worth is not defined by who shows up for you. Your worth is defined by the love you give, the resilience you carry, and the people you choose to let into your heart. Sometimes the ones who are supposed to love us the most fail us, but that doesn't mean we're unlovable. It just means we must learn to love ourselves enough to keep going. My wedding day may have been marked by absence, but my life is now marked by presence, the presence of a husband who adores me, in-laws who embrace me, and friends who remind me I'm never alone. And while my parents' absence left a wound, their eventual effort showed me that even broken relationships can find a sliver of light. It may never be perfect, but it can still be something. And that, my friends, is the story of how my parents ditched my event for my sister's dance recital, only to later discover it was my wedding. A painful chapter, yes, but one that taught me the most powerful lesson of all: you cannot control who shows up for you, but you can control how you rise above when they don't.